What is up, everybody? I'm John Sullivan, and welcome to the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. It's been a while. Glad to be back. You may know me from my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em, or from some other podcasts I've been involved in. This podcast is about the sports betting and fantasy sports lifestyle. I give out picks from time to time, lukewarm takes on any items in the gambling universe that interest me. So here we are, the end of the year. It's episode 20, my final podcast of 2016. And as somebody with more doctors than a MASH unit, I'm pretty happy to have survived 2016, at least so far. Better knock on wood, with a couple of days left here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple minutes to recap, betting-wise, my 2016, and just in case I actually croak before Sunday. So let's start with the CFL, and I finished CFL 2016 with a 27-17-2 record. It's my fourth straight winning year. It was definitely a fun season. I really enjoyed the CFL, and I'll talk a little bit more about the CFL at the end of the podcast. I said early on in this season that if you took Ottawa plus the points versus anyone, I'd take that bet every day, and I did. And if you did as well, you probably made some decent money this year. They ended up winning it all, even though I believe they were 7-8-1 in their division. But they did really good if you are a bettor. So moving on to NFL. Having a good year. Started slow, but in December I went 15-4, no pushes, and the season sits at 44-29-2. And a winning playoffs coming up here in January would mean my most profitable season so far. I think I'm up about 12.5 units in NFL this season. Now, last season for me was a very slight loser at minus 0.98 units, less than 1 unit. But the other, this year will be on the positive side, even with the bad playoffs. And that puts me with a winning, profitable season 3 out of 4 years overall. And I'm not sure what I've got cooking for this week 17. Maybe a couple of totals. There's a lot of question marks in the rosters and the rotations and whatnot, so I'm not really excited about betting week 17. So we'll see what happens. On to college hoops. That has been much more of a struggle for me. I started November minus 15 units. I only hit about 35% of my picks. I've lost 3 straight Novembers in a row. Hello, I smell a trend here. Maybe I should hold off a little bit on the beginning of the year. But December's been a bounce-back month. I cut out the totals and bet sides only. I made about half of my losses back. I'm sitting at 37-27 right now with a couple days left in the month. And I'm up about 7.5 units. So I made about half of it back. So we'll see how the rest of the year goes. I haven't finished recording my historical data from my 2015-16 season, but I do know I finished last year in the black, and I've been profitable the previous 3 years, so I'd like to get out of the hole here and continue 4 profitable years in a row in college basketball. That's why I stuck with college basketball this year, because I've had historical success. Maybe I'm just due for a bad year. Or maybe I should start later. 3 out of the 4 years I lost in November. Maybe I should start after Thanksgiving. We'll see what happens. But I'm sticking with it for now. And, excited about where this goes with league play for most of the big conferences. In NHL, I'm still running my totals experiments. For those of you that are not familiar with that, I'm betting overs and unders, either on the 5.5 or the 5, depending on what odds are given. And it's kind of going as expected. Overall, I'm down about 3 units, but it's about 500 wagers so far, which is pretty much break even. Wagers on the total of 5.5 are over 13 units to the good, to the black, while wagers on the total of 5 even are down about 15 units. So basically only one good night would put me back, put the whole shebang in the black for the whole season. But I think the experiment shows that books give up much less to the customer on the 5. Now, it's been a higher scoring year than last year due to a few factors. There have been some significant goalie injuries and drop off in some elite goalie play, and smaller equipment may have something to do with it. There may be better players in the league this year, younger, faster players. Not sure. Speed is very important in the game these days. I do think the 5.5 is worth playing long term if the odds remain this generous. But the one thing I have learned is this is a hell of a way to clear a sportsbook bonus if you still get those. If anybody still gets those, I don't know. But if somebody says, oh, you have to wager, X amount, and you can't wager more than this or more than that, and you can't wager, a heavy favorite, these totals would be perfect. You could just wager them every day, every game, and clear a bonus in no time, and probably break even. So, once again, for those of you not familiar with the totals experiment, I'm wagering over under 5.5. If the over's better than plus 135, the under's better than minus 120, and on 5, if either side over under is better than plus 105, I place the wager. So, one wager per game. So I've pretty much bet every NHL game so far, and it's broken even through the first couple months of the season. So after talking about all of that, what does 2017 bring? Well, it brings more college hoops, but after the NFL playoffs are over, I'm going to need a new pairing to go with the college hoops. Hoops and CFL really sync up really well. They end really close to each other and begin really close to each other. So right now I'm debating between Aussie football and Major League Soccer. Now, soccer totals have seemed frightfully sharp to me, but I'm hoping I can find lines worth attacking in the MLS, which runs from March to October. I know they just had their MLS Cup game in the last couple of 3 or 4 weeks, but most of the season ends, October-ish. So, and Aussie football runs from February to September, which syncs perfectly with NFL. So I'm still looking into that. I'll know more after the Super Bowl. But that's what this year is going to bring. It's going to bring some new wagering, a new field of wagering for me. And then before you know it, we'll be back to CFL again and start the whole routine. I've said in past episodes I'm specializing, and I'm sticking to that. I think I've made a lot of headway. I have a lot more focus than jumping all over the map. I'm so glad I didn't bet the college bowl games. I've sucked at those for the last couple of years, and I'm happy where things are right now. So on to some other topics besides my betting, and a few things I've wanted to comment on since my last episode. And the first is daily fantasy rake. And one of the DFS players I follow on Twitter was commenting on a GPP that he was playing in. And I noticed that the tournament he was playing in had 470 entries allowed, not per person, total entries, and only 400 going to the prize pool. Now, in my world, that calculates to 17.5% rake. That's the equivalent of paying minus 120 on every entry you make. Every entry you make. Now, I know that the DFS apologists will come and say, hey, if you divide 70 divided by 470, well, that's only 14.9%. And that math calculation is absolutely correct. But you would be dead foolish to consider that the actual rake. 17.5% of every entry you make is going directly into the pocket of DraftKings/FanDuel. So the other 82.5% is going into the prize pool. What does that mean? It means 20% rake is right around the corner. And unless you are one of the profitable few, or a member of a big syndicate, get out now. I'm telling you, sports betting is much easier on your wallet than daily fantasy sports is right now. I never thought I'd say that, but when I did have access to a betting exchange with Bitcoin, the rake was 1%. The commission was 1%. I don't understand how anybody thinks that DFS is a sharper wager than the way it's currently constituted. Now, if they change their game structures and they offer other things besides mass multi-entries, and they offer non-salary cap options, I'll be interested. But they need that rake just to survive. I mean, they are hanging on until this all gets cleared up. So I'll talk more about that in a second. The next thing I want to talk about in DFS is U.S. Fantasy. For those of you that don't know about that, U.S. Fantasy is a pari-mutuel DFS product which is live in Nevada and Colorado. So you basically buy a ticket, for example, who's going to throw the most passing yards today, and you can choose which quarterback you want, and it pays out pari-mutuel just like a horse race, based on the number of winning tickets versus the number of pool. Very simple concept, cool concept, I think, but my beef with U.S. Fantasy is that it's not legal based on the legislation passed in most states. I know in Massachusetts and New York, it says the prizes must be static and defined before the contest is entered, which means the payouts cannot change. So some people argue, they say they can change before the contest starts. Well, that can be debated in court. Also, in many states, it says the fantasy contest must have more than one player or more than one choice on the roster. So you can't run that style of contest with just one choice. You would have to make two. You would have to do like an exacta of passing yards or something along those lines. I know that's explicitly written into the Tennessee legislation, but almost all of the other legislations, it says multiple performance of multiple athletes in multiple real-world sporting events. So you have to have at least two on the roster. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not against this game. I think it's a good concept. It's just not a legal one. And I would not be surprised to see FanDuel and DraftKings sue over this if this site starts to get traction in more states. So it's a cool concept. I think it would be great to incorporate with OTB. It's simple enough to play. That's the thing that I wanted when I consulted for FanDuel. I told them you have to, if you want to appeal to the masses, you have to keep the game simple. And I think there's ways to combine the style of FanDuel and the style of U.S. Fantasy and stay within the laws as written, and I'll save that for another day. So on to the next bit. I noticed that FanDuel and DraftKings are quietly trying to settle some of the civil suits they're facing, the class action suits. And I suspect down the road that they will also try to settle with the feds, and we know there's federal investigations, eventually just paying a big fine so they can merge, spit out an IPO, and then the founders can cash in on the incredible nightmare the last 2 years have been for them as they watch their value crumble. It's really, in my opinion, soapbox, it's really too bad that, Nigel listened to people like Cal Spears. When they're growing their business, instead of being more patient, these sites went all in on mass multi-entry jackpot games, and they've painted themselves into this corner. Doesn't seem like the customer base is growing anymore. I don't know about you. A lot of people just get tired of it after a while, and they've refused to diversify their offerings. And by diversify, I don't mean a different sport. I mean different styles of games. There's more than one. Just like there's more than one way to play poker, there's more than one way to play fantasy sports. And they're I don't think anybody feels very sports rich right now. That's what I'm saying. So we'll see what happens with that in the new year. So my last topic on the day is Buffalo, and what I love about Buffalo, and also what I love about the CFL. Both the Bills and the Sabres are matching dumpster fires, and neither team has seen a playoff game since at least 2010. And we have owners in the Pagulas with oodles of cash and ambition, and they would really love to bring a winner to Buffalo, and I have a perfect solution for that. It's time to bring a CFL team to Buffalo, a CFL franchise. Now, I can hear your eyes rolling from over here, but hear me out. It's a win-win-win scenario. First off, the CFL needs a 10th team really badly, and they need one in the Eastern Division. Buffalo already has NHL rivalries with Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, and Hamilton is under an hour away if you get there without any delays going over the border or whatnot. We already know Canadians will travel across the border for Bills and Sabres games. It's a great fit for the league. It would be the league's biggest market. So that fits really good. The Pagulas have their One Buffalo brand. They launched this sportswear brand, One Buffalo marketing brand, if you want to call it, by owning the Bills and the Sabres and the Bandits all under one roof. This would be a chance for them to bring another product line under that umbrella, and one they can choose and develop themselves. They can go with a historical name, like bring back the football Bisons, or develop a new name. CFL teams have a hard salary cap of $5 million Canadian for the whole team. It's very cost effective, so if you think they can draw fans, and we know fans will come over the border for sporting events, that should be a very profitable venture for them. And they'd be much closer to a championship in the CFL with just 10 teams. The Ottawa Redblacks just did it in 3 years, from expansion team to, in playing 3 seasons, they went from expansion team to Grey Cup champions. So it can be done. It can be done quickly. This would also benefit the Bills tremendously. If they got a CFL franchise, they would be the only NFL ownership with a true farm team. They could develop players. They could also develop coaches and general managers. And the CFL schedule easily works around competing high school, college, NFL games. They play on all days of the week. 10 extra home dates for the local stadium. That includes tailgating, parking, all kinds of concession revenue, and benefits to the local economy. And the city of Buffalo could benefit tremendously from that by eventually hosting a Grey Cup game as the championship of the CFL, as a stepping stone to prove maybe they're ready to host a Super Bowl. And, maybe they build a new stadium down the road. And then if they host a Grey Cup, maybe they host a bowl game. So the city could benefit, the ownership and the teams could benefit, and obviously the CFL could benefit. It's win-win-win. And I'm going to write, for lack of a better term, a strongly worded letter to Pagula Sports Entertainment in order to convince them to pursue a CFL team. So we'll see if my pipe dream has any legs, but I'm still composing it, but I'm going to send it very shortly. Maybe I'll put it on Twitter when I'm finished. So that's it for 2016. Thanks for listening. You can check out my rants, my picks, my betting records on my Twitter page at Buffalo Hold'em. And you can also listen to all my podcasts and former media appearances, all available on my YouTube channel, which is also named Buffalo Hold'em. So until we meet again, hopefully early next month, bet like no one's watching. Take care.